A border can look permanent on a modern map, but some of the largest borders in the world began as numbers written across a negotiating table. No armies crossed the line that day. A pin moved, a seal cooled, and millions of square kilometers changed political control. The headline price makes these agreements sound like extraordinary bargains. Yet land was never the only thing being transferred. Rivers, ports, forests, trade routes, and military positions could be worth more than the soil itself. And the people already living there were rarely invited to decide whether their homeland should appear beneath a different flag. 5 agreements reveal how modern maps were redrawn by debt, war, commerce, fear, and ambition. The first began with a city at the mouth of a river and ended with a nation nearly twice its former size. The numbers in this story are real, but they cannot be compared as if every transaction occurred in the same economy. Inflation, debt, retained privileges, and promised works changed what each agreement actually cost. The useful question is not simply who paid least. It is what each buyer believed the territory could become. In 1803, the United States was focused on New Orleans, the commercial gateway controlling access between the Mississippi River and the Gulf of Mexico. President Thomas Jefferson's government first wanted secure access to the port. Without it, Western farmers could lose their route to international markets. Then Napoleon's government offered something far larger: the entire Louisiana territory held by France. The offer covered about 530 million acres, roughly 2.14 million square kilometers, from the Mississippi toward the Rocky Mountains. It included all or part of 15 present-day American states, although those future borders did not yet exist. The agreed price was $15 million. The transaction nearly doubled the nominal size of the United States. Why sell so much? France's imperial plans in the Caribbean had been shattered by the revolution in Saint-Domingue, now Haiti. Napoleon also expected renewed war with Britain and needed money for campaigns in Europe. A distant territory that might be seized by Britain could become immediate cash instead. For the United States, the purchase secured the Mississippi and opened an enormous path westward. But the map's empty-looking spaces were not empty. Indigenous nations occupied, governed, and used these lands through their own political worlds. The agreement between France and the United States did not ask those nations to surrender sovereignty. Expansion followed with surveys, settlements, trade, and increasing pressure on native communities across the continent. What looked like a single bargain in Washington became decades of movement, conflict, and dispossession on the ground. The Louisiana Purchase was not merely land bought cheaply. It was control over a continental river system and the beginning of a new balance of power. The river itself explains why the purchase mattered. The Mississippi collected commerce from a vast interior and carried it toward the Gulf. Whoever controlled its outlet could influence the prosperity of farms and settlements far beyond New Orleans. Geography turned a port negotiation into a continental transformation. 64 years later, another offer arrived from the opposite edge of North America, where distance and cold shaped every calculation. Russia's North American colony was expensive to supply, difficult to defend, and dangerously close to British territory in Canada. After the Crimean War, Russian officials feared that Britain might take Alaska in a future conflict without paying anything for it. Secretary of State William Seward saw expansion, resources, and a stronger American position in the North Pacific. Negotiations with Russian Minister Eduard de Stoeckel produced a price of $7.2 million. The agreement was signed on March 30th, 1867, for about 1.52 million square kilometers. The transfer ceremony followed at Sitka in October, under the cold, wet conditions typical of the coast. Later memory reduced the purchase to Seward's folly, as if Americans had unanimously mocked a frozen wasteland. Criticism was real, but the deal also had strategic support. The famous story of universal ridicule is too simple. Then Alaska's material value became harder to ignore. Fisheries, minerals, gold, oil, and gas. Its geographic value also grew. Alaska faces the Arctic, the Pacific, and Russia across the Bering Strait. Yet Alaska was never an unused refrigerator. Inupiat, Yupik, Onondagas, Tlingit, and other peoples had lived across the region for generations. The sale transferred imperial claims between governments. It did not erase indigenous ownership, knowledge, or political life. Alaska became an American state in 1959, but its importance had been accumulating long before statehood. The bargain was not simply $7 million for ice. It was a northern frontier, an ocean position, and resources whose value unfolded over time. Alaska also demonstrates how strategic value can exist before profitable resources are fully known. The coastline, islands, and northern waters mattered to shipping, defense, and access between oceans. Gold and petroleum later strengthened the argument, but the territory's location had already made it more than an expanse of cold ground. The third case is often summarized in one sentence: Brazil bought Acre. The actual agreement was far more complicated. At the turn of the 20th century, Acre was recognized as Bolivian territory, but much of its rubber economy was worked by migrants from Brazil. The global demand for rubber made the remote forest commercially important. Bolivia tried to strengthen control and arranged for the Bolivian Syndicate, backed by foreign capital, to administer economic rights in the region. For many Brazilian settlers already living there, that plan felt like an outside authority arriving over an economy they had built. Revolts and armed confrontations followed, creating a dispute that Brazil and Bolivia could no longer leave unresolved. Diplomacy eventually produced the Treaty of Petrópolis, signed on November 17, 1903. Brazil received Acre, while Bolivia received £2 million and a package of territorial, commercial, and infrastructure commitments. Brazil also promised to build the Madeira-Mamor Railway, intended to give Bolivian trade a route around dangerous river rapids. The agreement included navigation rights, border adjustments, and arrangements connected to ending the syndicate's claim. That is why Brazil bought Acre, is useful shorthand but incomplete history. The deal followed occupation, rebellion, diplomacy, and strategic calculation, not a simple real estate sale. Acre helped consolidate Brazil's western frontier and secured control over a major rubber-producing region. But the forest was also home to indigenous communities whose territories were pressured by rubber expansion, migration, and new political boundaries. The railway promise later became a brutal engineering project through disease, floods, and difficult terrain. In Acre, the final price was not only money. It included infrastructure, access, political recognition, and the human cost of transforming a forest frontier. The Acre settlement reveals why a headline payment can hide the most important clauses. Bolivia was not simply handed a check and removed from the map. The arrangement connected money to transportation, river access, boundary exchanges, and the cancellation of a foreign concession. Its practical consequences unfolded for years after the signatures dried. The largest territory in this story was not transferred by one country to another. It had been administered by a private company. In 1670, the English crown granted the Hudson's Bay Company rights over the vast watershed draining into Hudson Bay. This region became known as Rupert's Land and covered roughly 3.9 million square kilometers, about 40% of present-day Canada. For 2 centuries, the company built a commercial network around fur, waterways, and trading posts. Its authority was never the same as an empty owner holding and used land. Indigenous nations sustained their own governments, economies, and relationships across the region. After Canadian Confederation, the new Dominion wanted the Northwest for settlement, trade, and a transcontinental future. The Hudson's Bay Company surrendered its territorial claims, and Canada paid £300,000. The company also retained trading posts and selected lands, making the arrangement more complex than a clean sale. The transfer was completed in 1870, expanding Canada across much of the continent's northern interior. Yet the agreement had been made without the full participation of the indigenous peoples and Metis communities whose lives were rooted there. At Red River, Metis leaders organized resistance under Louis Riel and demanded negotiations before Canada imposed control. The crisis helped produce the Manitoba Act of 1870, but conflict over land, language, and political rights continued. Canada gained territory large enough to shape provinces, railways, and national strategy for generations. The company received money and retained assets. Canada gained space. Local peoples faced a government they had not chosen through that bargain. Rupert's land exposes the central illusion of territorial sales. A map may be transferred on paper, while belonging on the ground remains contested. Rupert's land raises an even deeper legal question. What exactly was the company entitled to surrender? The charter described commercial and governing rights claimed by an empire, while indigenous nations maintained relationships to land that did not originate in that charter. The transaction solved Canada's expansion problem without resolving that contradiction. The final deal involved far less land, yet its price exceeded both Alaska and Louisiana in nominal dollars. The Danish West Indies consisted mainly of St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix in the Caribbean. Their colonial economy had been built around sugar and the labor of enslaved Africans, leaving a social history far deeper than the later sale. By the First World War, the island's main value to the United States was strategic location. Washington feared that Germany might seize a Danish possession and use its harbors near vital Caribbean routes. The opening of the Panama Canal had made control of nearby sea lanes even more important. A treaty signed in 1916 set the price at $25 million in gold, and the transfer took place in 1917. The islands became the United States Virgin Islands, an unincorporated American territory. Their residents later received United States citizenship, but the territory did not become a state and still lacks the full federal political power of one. Here, a small group of islands cost more because harbors, sea lanes, and military fears mattered more than area. In the Caribbean case, nominal price and physical size moved in opposite directions. The islands were small, but naval planners measured value through deep harbors, coaling access, and distance from major routes. A few strategic shorelines could matter more to a government than millions of inland acres. Across all 5 agreements, dividing price by square kilometers creates a dramatic number, but also a misleading one. Each deal carried different debts, risks, promises, retained rights, transport projects, and military calculations. More importantly, each territory contained people whose rights could not be reduced to the signatures of distant governments and companies. The modern map was not only conquered, it was negotiated, financed, and transferred, and the price on paper never told the whole story. These agreements survive in national origin stories because they make history appear decisive and measurable. Yet the clean lines came later. On the ground, authority changed unevenly. Promises were disputed and communities adapted under new institutions. A treaty could redraw a map in one day, while its consequences lasted generations.